Welcome to Kripabhavan Daily Reflections.
Table fellowship and sinners. In the world of the New Testament, sharing a meal wasn't just about food, it was about identity, community, and belonging. To eat with someone meant to accept them, to associate with them, and in some sense, to affirm them. This makes the actions of Jesus all the more radical when he repeatedly sits and eats with those considered the spiritual outcasts of his time. Nowhere is this more powerfully demonstrated than in Matthew 9 verses 9 to 13, where Jesus calls Matthew a tax collector and then dines with many tax collectors and sinners. In this simple yet profound act of table fellowship, Jesus reveals the heart of the gospel: mercy over judgment, inclusion over exclusion, and healing over condemnation.
Jesus' radical invitation. The story begins with Jesus walking past a tax booth and calling Matthew, a man despised by his fellow Jews for collaborating with Rome and collecting taxes, often dishonestly. Without hesitation, Matthew rises and follows him. This moment illustrates Jesus' willingness to reach out to those others had written off. Jesus doesn't wait for Matthew to clean up his life first. The call comes before repentance, showing that divine grace initiates transformation, not the other way around. A table full of sinners. Soon after, Jesus is found dining at Matthew's house with a group described as tax collectors and sinners. This would have been scandalous to the religious leaders of the day. In Jewish society, the idea of eating with unclean people blurred social and spiritual boundaries. But Jesus deliberately enters these spaces to create fellowship with the marginalized. By doing so, Jesus is not merely tolerating sinners. He's extending friendship and recognition to them. The table becomes a symbol of God's kingdom where all are welcome, not because they are righteous, but because they are loved. Temple tax and social exclusion. In Jewish tradition, every adult male was expected to pay the annual temple tax, Exodus 30 verses 13 to 16, which supported the temple's maintenance and worship. Failure to pay the tax often carried a social and religious stigma. Those who did not or could not pay were sometimes viewed as neglecting their religious duty and considered spiritually deficient, sinners in the eyes of the religious elite. Tax collectors, ironically, were often aligned with Rome, collecting Roman taxes from their fellow Jews. Though they were financially powerful, their alignment with Gentile powers and separation from temple practices made them outsiders to the religious establishment. Those they associated with, often the poor or other marginalized people, were also viewed as failing to uphold temple obligations. In this sense, to not pay the temple tax was more than a financial failure. It was a mark of religious exclusion. Jesus' table fellowship with such individuals was not just about personal kindness. It was a direct challenge to the religious system that excluded them. The Pharisees' objection: legalism confronted. The Pharisees, representatives of religious purity and strict law-keeping, are deeply offended. "Why does your teacher eat with tax collectors and sinners?" they ask. To them, Jesus' table fellowship compromises holiness. But Jesus challenges their assumptions. His reply is pointed and profound. Those who are well have no need of a physician, but those who are sick. In other words, if you think you're spiritually healthy, you won't seek healing. Jesus' mission is not to affirm the self-righteous, but to rescue those who know they are broken.
Conclusion: the table is still open. The story of Jesus dining with sinners continues to echo today. The church is called to be a table where grace is served freely, not a fortress guarding the righteous from the unworthy. In a world quick to divide, label, and exclude, Jesus' table fellowship reminds us that the gospel is for the broken, the outcast, and the undeserving, because that includes all of us. Jesus' example invites us to consider, who are we willing to sit with? Who do we consider too far gone? And what does our table say about the God we claim to follow?